Hi everyone, this video is going to go through the steps for creating both a frequency table and a histogram for a bunch of data in Excel. Before we start, check your Data tab. If you do not have the Data Analysis Toolpak enabled, so if you don't see this Data Analysis button, you do need to do that first. So if you don't see that, go check the video on how to enable that. So here in this document I have a whole list of about 600 different earthquake magnitudes. There's also earthquake depths, but I'm just going to use the magnitudes here. And I'm looking to make a frequency table and a histogram for all of those values. Now I've already determined my classes or my bins. So you need to do that first and decide how do you want to group your data. Check out the textbook if you have questions about that. And so these are the classes that I want to use for my magnitudes. And I already verified that they all fit in there. But to go through one by one and say, okay, 2.45, that would go in here, and then 3.62, that would go in here, and check them off one by one would take forever with 600 values. So we want to use Excel to do this. Now, what Excel needs in order to create a frequency table is actually the upper class limits of our class. So rather than giving it the whole class, I need to actually type in the upper class limits. So if you've already determined your classes, that should be pretty easy, but just type them in there so they're ready. And now we're going to go to the Data tab. I'm going to click the Data Analysis Tools button, and I want the option that says Histogram. And you can use this histogram option to make just a frequency table, or it will also make a histogram, so it's up to you. All right, the input range is going to be where our data is. So if you click in this box, then I'm just going to come over and highlight all of the magnitudes. So starting with this 2.45, and I'm going to click and hold down, dragging all of the magnitudes. If you kind of wiggle your mouse, it seems like it scrolls down faster. All right, so here, line 601, that's my last value. So then I'll let go of the mouse. And notice it says, okay, A2 to A601. You can actually just type in the numbers if you know specifically which cells you want. It's just a little bit easier to highlight them. Okay, and then the bin range is where we're going to put in those upper class limits. So I'm going to scroll back up to the top and then click on my bin range and then highlight my list of upper class limits. So we don't want the classes, we just want the upper class limits. This labels button is if you happen to highlight the title on either of your data, you could click the labels, but I did not. And then you can choose where you want the result. So you can put it within this worksheet and just specify where. Or usually I do a new worksheet. So maybe I call this magnitudes histogram. You can also create an entirely new Excel file, but usually creating a new worksheet is a good option. You don't have to give it a name, but that helps you organize the little tabs at the bottom. And then the last piece is I want to check this chart output option because this is what actually makes the histogram. If you don't check this, then you'll just get a frequency table. So then I'll click OK. And notice that my original data is in this earthquakes tab. I now have a new tab called magnitudes histogram. This first table is my frequency table. Now notice that the bins, it's only listing those upper class limits, and that's not really what I want. So I'm going to come back and copy the classes because I already typed these out. And then I will paste those in here so that my labels are actually the whole range and not just the upper class limit. It just makes a little bit more sense. And then we can see the frequencies of each of these classes. This more category is all automatically generated in case you have any values that went over 4.99, and I don't, so I could just delete those. Right click and delete. And that'll also remove it from the histogram, which is nice. And so this is a pretty good frequency table. You could change the title to magnitudes to be a little bit more descriptive. And then in our histogram, there's a couple things you would want to edit. So you'd probably want to give this a better title, something based on the data values that you're using. I would also give my horizontal axis a better title. So this is magnitudes. The vertical axis will always be frequency, so we don't really have to worry about that. You could resize this a little bit. It'll help us see the bars a little bit better. And then the other thing that we typically want with histograms is these bars shouldn't really be separate like this unless you're doing a bar graph with categorical data. So there's lots of ways to change this, but one easy way is in the Design tab for chart tools, there's a little drop down called Quick Layout. And one of the quick layouts, looks like it's quick layout number 8, has the bars automatically touching. So I usually just pick that one, and now my bars are touching. We're getting more of a sense that the data is a continuous flow. Ideally, we wouldn't really label the columns like this. We would have tick marks for each division. I'm not going to be picky about this in class. You can definitely go into all kinds of settings in the design and format chart tools, but for my class, this graph is perfectly fine. If you have a different instructor, just talk to your instructor about how they'd like you to set up the graph. So that is it for creating basic histograms. Thanks for watching.